the energy that we mine Bitcoin with comes from one of the world's largest hydro dams, from the world's largest waterfall system, which is called the Iguaçu Falls. It's really, I think, a marvel of engineering. You have to be able to think in a nonlinear way. We grew from 6 to 9.5 exahash in less than a month. We're talking 50% globally. Like, I don't think people were giving us the credit. It's 4x growth in 1 year. None of the other big miners have growth like that this year. Now we got about 5,000 GPUs. We're on track for 20 million ARR this quarter. So we went from 1 million to 20 million. We went from 400 to 4,000 GPUs. Then we added in some NVIDIA H100s and H200s. We're just scaling at all odds and all costs.
Yeah.
I think the other cool thing too is our blended fleet efficiency will be 17.5 joules per terahash by the time we're built out. If you can mine profitably at the hash price of a bear market, you will survive until the next halving, and you'll enjoy all the fruit from the bull run.
Seems like we're about due for that. We're here at Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas, joined by Aydin, the president and CEO of Hive Digital Technologies. Aydin is an electrical engineer turned crypto infrastructure pioneer, leading one of the most ambitious green Bitcoin mining operations on the planet. With Hive scaling toward 25 exahashes and expanding across Canada, Sweden, and Paraguay, he's not just mining Bitcoin, he's architecting the future of sustainable, decentralized computing. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Well said. Thank you.
That was a hell of an intro whipped up on my man Paul over there. I love that. But he hit the nail on the head. Yeah, you guys are doing a lot of stuff in the Norwegian countries I've been looking at. Obviously, it's nice and cool there, and the power can be cheap if you can navigate the political climate. Depends who's in power in those parliaments, right? How's that been?
Well said. So it's funny you say that, because spot price in the last month or so, we've had days where it was pretty much under under $10 a megawatt hour. So we're talking like, 0.1, 0.5 cents a kilowatt hour. On some days it was almost flat, but there's that energy tax that applies to all data centers, not just crypto. So, that gets us, that's in the high two. So our spot price in Sweden with the tax is in the high 2 cent per kilowatt hour range. We also hedge a bunch of power for the 1 year forward contract. So we have a bunch of power hedged at, I believe, around 3 cents.
Still incredible. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And so, when you add the data center tax, where our power cost in Sweden is either on spot is going to be, close to that, just the rate of the energy tax, or with our hedge price in the 5 to 6 cent range, which is still pretty competitive because, Sweden's otherwise been a great place. We have deep roots in the community. We sponsor the hockey team there. We do demand response. So that's a big thing. Yeah. Right. So we get, paid by the utility company to be on standby, and it's all software driven, right? So when we do modulate or attenuate our load, it can just be for minutes for the day, and we're not shutting the whole factory down, right? Like it can just be a percentage thereof. So it's very much fine tuned. And the thing is, our facility in northern Sweden, that was our GPU hotbed, right? In the Ethereum mining days, which you and I were talking about, I was mining with over 120,000 GPUs in northern Sweden, what I believe was the largest single site Ethereum mine in the world. And it was a great business. And so after the Ethereum merge, we pivoted and we got into mining altcoins. And we also you and I talked about that. So you're an expert in the space as well. And the economics of mining altcoins with GPUs just wasn't as lucrative because Ethereum had such a strong community, which of course, they lost when it went to proof of stake. But that sort of, volatility, or, sometimes a crisis is a moment for opportunity. And so that's when we pivoted into HPC.
Yeah.
And we took 400 GPUs, and this was in the early part of 2023. And I think by Q2 of 2023, we were on our way to doing $1 million of annual run rate revenue with 400 GPUs.
Wow.
And so on $1 per kilowatt hour basis, these GPUs are doing like upwards of $1 a kilowatt hour, where Bitcoin mining was maybe doing 10 cents back then, a kilowatt hour, and mining GPU altcoins was doing maybe 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So
sounds about right.
And so we're like, wow, this is
it's still there. I mean,
and so we scaled and we really grew the GPU business doing HPC compute. Now we got about 5,000 GPUs. We're on track for 20 million ARR this quarter. So we went from 1 million to 20 million. We went from 400 to 4,000 GPUs. Then we added in some NVIDIA H100s and H200s. Because keep in mind, what we were mining with NVIDIA A40s, A6000s.
Yeah.
There was an A series cards. And so when we grew them, we took 400 cards to get $1 million of revenue. Then we grew that fleet of A series cards because we already had them. We just had to sort of reconfigure them in tier 3 data centers.
Yeah, you got to kind of change the cases and add RAM and
yeah, we're not using
stuff, yeah.
exactly. We're not using E-Thrigs. They're in super micro servers, right?
Super
like
micro.
full Intel Gold series CPUs.
I just deployed a bunch of those in Wisconsin. It's funny that you mentioned that.
And so that was great. And so that got us towards our target. We reached I think our last press release was that we hit 13 million ARR, which is really like $250,000 a week. And so we're now on track with the H200s coming online to be at 20 million this quarter. So that's on the GPU side of things, man. And that's Sweden. We love Sweden. We're still there. We've got our flagship data center we call Big Bowden, our smaller data center we call Little Bowden. And we've actually decided that we want to convert the Little Bowden facility. It's a 7 megawatt site. We say we get 1.2 PUE. We think we get 5 megawatts of compute. I should say, 4 megawatts of compute. And that'll be a pure play HPC site on land that we...
This could very quickly turn into like a 4-hour conversation between us. I've already got 50 questions from your first answer, sub questions and sub things. So what are you guys... What GPUs are you guys deploying now? What are you guys using for the cloud? How is it? Obviously, when you mine, you're renting your hash rate and your compute to a decentralized network, right? So you're being paid by a system or a designed system that's decentralized, right? The rules are set. You can choose to participate, you can choose not to participate, which is hard for people to wrap their brains around. When you're dealing with AI-based compute, I mean, you have real customers. Are you mostly dealing with one or two larger customers? Are you using marketplaces like Vast? Are you doing a combination of all of the above?
Combination of all of the above. So we started with marketplaces, and we had 5 marketplaces at one point. And marketplaces themselves, a lot of them are finding their way. They're trying to onboard customers, of course, give good customer experience. We have 1 or 2 marketplaces who, I can't say their name because everybody wants to know, but that have really grown with us and have been great in their own right, raising capital, doing more technology rollout in terms, offering one-click clustering and, almost having inference as a service. But for the most part, it's bare metal, right? And so for the most part, it is customers. Like we've got a couple enterprises. We've got a lot of researchers actually, NYU, Berkeley. And so sometimes we've donated compute as well to people doing cool stuff. Fun fact, NVIDIA's Nemotron model was actually the knowledge distillation for that model was done on a data set that our research team did. And so shout out to Austin, but he had created the Buzz data set, which is on Hugging Face. And now I'm talking the AI stuff. And I feel like, we're at the Bitcoin conference, so I don't want to stray too far.
No, we can talk about it all. I mean, it's all kind of connected. There's a natural synergy there. I think David Sachs just was talking about that on stage 20 minutes ago. So,
Cool. So then in that case, I'm happy to elaborate. So, Hive Digital Technologies, there is a repo on Hugging Face. We have a couple, some models that were fine-tuned on our ASIC, on our GPUs, as well as a few data sets. And again, NVIDIA used one of our data sets for knowledge distillation of their own open source model, which they called Nemotron. So it's pretty crazy that NVIDIA is getting into models themselves, which they unveiled at GTC this year when our team was out there. So I think, really riding the wave. Hive has just done so much. By the way, it's the first public crypto miner ever.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Our executive chairman, Frank Holmes, is a co-founder, went public in September 2017. And Frank and I actually met at a panel.
Oh, wow.
I took my own crypto mining company public, raised some capital, was running that as CEO. And Frank and I met on a panel, and we kept meeting in conferences, Bahamas, New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, you name it. And so we became industry friends. And Frank, very experienced in capital markets, also a mentor of mine.
Wow.
And then he sort of extended the offer to join Hive and help him run the business. And man, there's been no looking back. We've done some cool stuff. We built our own ASIC miner with Intel. We use their chip called the block scale chip. And we built over 10,000.
These are the buzz miners?
Bam. You know,
Bam.
oh man, you did your homework.
I did my homework. I know a little bit
Nice.
about this industry.
And so we did that, navigated. I mean, Hive has navigated 2 Bitcoin halvings, obviously the Ethereum merge. So we've done a lot. I think, we're a high revenue per employee company. We run lean and mean. We lead the sector in uptime and hash rate utilization. So we really try to walk the walk. I think the other thing that's important to know about Hive is that now 2025 is this transformative year of growth, right? We've got 25 exahash coming online in Paraguay. We just announced last week we hit 9.5 exahash. We grew from 6 to 9.5 exahash in less than a month. We're talking 50% globally. Like, I don't think people were giving us the credit. I think there was this benefit of the doubt multiple that a lot of our peers were getting that were just scaling at all odds and all costs. And we were like, we want to find green energy at scale at a good cost, right?
That's
and
key.
Paraguay was a place that satisfied all those conditions precedent for us. So once we identified it, we went all in. We started by buying some land, made a deal, obviously with Aydin, the national energy provider, for own 100 megawatt site. But then we saw opportunity. Bitfarms had a change in leadership. They wanted to sell their 200 megawatt site being built in Paraguay. And
why do you think they did that? Do you think it has to do with the political climate there, of kind of the on again, off again?
It's more the corporate climate, because Jeff Murphy, and I know Jeff Murphy and I know Ben Gagnon. I think they're both great guys. Jeff Murphy left Bitfarms as CEO, and he was really leading that expansion to Latin America. And Ben Gagnon was really passionate about doing the deal with Stronghold and coming stateside. And so really, and they've said this in interviews and press releases, by selling us their 200 megawatt site, which, by the way, the first 100 megawatts was 95% complete. So allows us to really scale up quickly. And by the way, we got a phenomenal deal. We got it effectively at cost. By selling that to us, what's the right word? I should say, alleviated further capital to Bitfarms, because for them to finish the 200 megawatts and then fill it up with ASICs, it's a lot of CapEx.
It's a lot of CapEx.
So they wanted to redirect all that capital flow to their Stronghold deal. Cool. Great. We're experienced being internationally diversified, right? Decentralized. We're in Sweden. We were in Iceland. We're in Quebec, New Brunswick, and now Paraguay. So it made perfect sense. And we have very good connections with the Paraguayan government. Chairman Frank Holmes actually has met the president of the country, Santiago Peña. We hired our own country president for operations, Gabriel Lamas. He's been incredible. And he was actually recently with the country president. Pardon me getting over my allergies. He met the country president recently at a ribbon cutting ceremony in the province of Valenzuela, where 100 megawatt site is. So we've got great relationships. I met the CTO of Aydin, which is the utility company, last time I was in Paraguay. I'm going back there in a couple of weeks. And get this, the energy that we mine Bitcoin with in Paraguay,
hydro, right?
Hydro comes from one of the world's largest hydro dams, the Itaipu Dam, over 10 gigawatts of production. And it pulls power from the world's largest waterfall system, which is called the Iguaçu Falls. So I'm going to fly out there with the video production team in a few weeks. I want to share that experience with the world, show all our shareholders and investors. Hey, you know what? We're doing cool stuff at Hive. It's really, I think, a marvel of engineering. And also it's very remote. So it makes perfect sense for Bitcoin mining. And with that growth, starting the year off at 6 exahash and growing to 25 exahash, it's 4x growth in 1 year. None of the other big miners have growth like that this year. They've all kind of either hit critical mass or pumping the brakes. So 2025 is the year of Hive, 25 exahash. I think the other cool thing too is our blended fleet efficiency will be 17.5 joules in terahash by the time we're built out. And a big part of that is the S21 plus hydro miner we bought from Bitmain. We did a landmark order. We're going to have 13 exahash of hydro mining capacity in Paraguay. And that's really what's bringing our efficiency numbers at 17.5 range. And I was running some calculations earlier. On an average basis, we'll be able to profitably mine down to $20 hash price, So we've got a very long runway ahead of us. And at Hive, we're all about mining for maximum ROI, right? You've been in the game a long time,
Yeah.
right? If you're buying ASICs or GPUs, if you are not fully making back your investment on that hardware and then some after costs, you shouldn't be in the mining game.
No, you're not wrong.
And a lot of people,
Well, you can't survive in the mining game.
Exactly.
If you don't. It's not a matter of if.
like, some of the public companies, they got the cheat code. They'll just like, raise more capital or whatever. We stayed away. We haven't done any of those converts or any of those debt deals. And we've grown organically. So I think for the longest time, Hive used to be over $1 billion market cap. I want to remind people in 2021 when I joined, we never got a premium for mining ETH. All we got was this like FUD. Oh, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Oh, well, they're going to go to zero when the merge comes. Guess what? We're still here. We're still killing it.
Yeah.
And we've done so much cool stuff since, right?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, like crypto mining, it's not 1 or 0. It's asymptotic. Merge comes, you mine altcoins. Instead of doing 30 cents a kilowatt hour, you're doing 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Still net cash flow positive.
Yeah.
And our GPUs that we were mining ETH with, the AMD ones, dude, we ROI'd on those things 3 times over since 2018, right?
Yeah.
And then the NVIDIA.
And there was a period there in 2021 where it was like, I think I ROI'd some of those. I looked at the numbers. It was like, there was like a 2-week period where like, if you were mining ETH, like you are, and you bought your GPUs cheap, if you were efficient, you would have literally ROI'd your stuff in 2 weeks. It was hard to fathom that true.
2021 was wild.
2021, yeah.
And, we in effect doubled down and bought the fleet of NVIDIA GPUs to have a post-Ethereum merge strategy. And that's how we got into HPC. But those NVIDIA GPUs, our A5000s were doing 90 cents a kilowatt hour during that period. It was crazy. And the other cards were doing 45 cents a kilowatt hour. So like, put that into perspective, like even in the bull market, I think Bitcoin was still just 20 to 25 cents a kilowatt hour. So it was super lucrative.
Well, altcoin mining has always, it has that upside, right?
Yeah.
There's always been that, when you're in a bull cycle, it accelerates higher than Bitcoin. And when you're in a bear cycle, it goes lower. It feels like, right? So there's more volatility there. But wow, this is a fascinating conversation. What do you mentioned a little bit about demand response. I'm doing some demand response with Duke Energy in the Carolinas at some of my sites. So you mentioned, and I actually did a call with like 50 people on their team recently to I've been trying to explain to them for years that hey, we can literally shut off whenever you want at any time for any length of time, as much as you need, right? Trying to explain to them that they literally could put a switch and they could press the switch if they needed me to shut off, essentially giving them that level of control. And I think they're finally starting to wrap their minds around that. Oh, I think Maddie was just full of shit. No, they're coming to me. They're like, hey, you know that you're the only one of our only customers who actually are in these programs and shuts off every time. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm pulling power 24/7 and this is important, right? We can actually do that. Whereas a lot of people don't understand there's other industries, even AI can't necessarily always do it. If customers are paying 90 cents per kilowatt hour, why would you shut off for that little, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. And plus it could ruin, the models that are being trained or whatever.
Totally.
Mining is this unique thing that can actually do that, right? You might have factories that people have, and if you say, "Hey, we need to shut off from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon," they're not going to do that because they have all their workers there. They can't just send them home. Whereas with a mining operation, we absolutely can do that. How do you feel? What is your thoughts on different countries, right? Because you have an international presence. Where do you think the demand response programs are? You mentioned in Sweden that they have a lot more control. Explain that.
They're advanced. We've been doing demand response in Sweden since 2020. When I joined Hive in 2021, I flew to Stockholm. I actually went to the corporate downtown Stockholm office of the national energy provider Vattenfall. And they had 4 levels of executive management come down to welcome me. Yeah. And I had a presentation for them and they had a presentation for me. I was like, oh, and they were like, yeah, it's great to meet you. At the time I was president COO and year later I was promoted CEO, but they were like, you're the largest demand response participant in the country. And so much in the same way that Duke in North Carolina, I think was probably impressed, maybe even bewildered that because you talk to a guy that's been in power for, decades, and it'd probably be hard for them to fathom that somebody that's running 5, 10, 20 megawatts. I mean, like in crypto parlance nowadays, that's not huge, but in like standard industrial applications,
That's
like
huge.
10 megawatts
Yeah.
is huge.
Even
man.
a couple megawatts, 24/7 pull, 98%.
And then
Like
to be
that's
able to
huge.
just like go down
1
on, like,
megawatt of energy that is like you're using at 100% capacity.
Totally.
That's significant. Even a factory might have a 5 megawatt transformer, but they might be using 500, 500 or 300 of it at any given time. Yeah.
Exactly. So fascinating conversation. I concur. So Sweden's great. We actually tried to pioneer a demand response program in New Brunswick, and the funny thing was that it was a bit of a learning curve. That I mean, they're sophisticated, but they just almost like didn't think it was possible.
That's what I'm getting. And then finally they're like, "Oh, Maddie, you're gonna talk to we're gonna have you come talk to 50 people on our team." I'm like, okay, and like they put this new program together, this new demand response program, and it's like a more advanced one with shorter notice. And like I told them, I said, guys, like, for the next, when you guys release your next rate schedule, you can have a new program and it can be even better. Like, this is,
Totally.
like you guys are giving me an hours of heads up notice day in advance. Like, I don't even need that. Like, I can literally give you the fucking switch and you can put the switch right there. And then when you need me to shut down, you press the switch yourself. You got your guys in your control rooms and they can see an emergency over here. They can just boop, boop, they can press the button, I mean, that's, in my mind, that's amazing. I mean, maybe you might have to power down the ASIC slowly over the course of 60 to 120 seconds or whatever, but, still, that's amazing,
Totally.
right? Yeah. So is that how it is in Sweden, or do you still physically have to shut it down? Do they actually have the ability to shut it down themselves?
So what they do is it's incentive based. So they send us a software signal, and when we get that signal, if we participate and we load shed in accordance with their kind of like timeline diagram, then we get credit.
Interesting. That's almost kind of like ERCOT. I think they have something similar where it's more like my program is just like you. With Duke, it's just like, hey, like we're giving you a notice, you can participate or not.
It's like that in New Brunswick. It's a little bit more.
It's a little
more old school.
That's the vibe I get from
it.
And
it was also a pilot program, so it wasn't, and it really was just seasonal for them because they don't have those issues and during the rest of the year. And like right now, New Brunswick power prices we have days that are like sub 1, sub 2 cent.
That's
Canadian.
unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean our fixed rate.
Where's New Brunswick? Where's that?
Grand Falls. It's close to the border of Maine, but with the fixed.
Gotcha.
But in the winter, it can go up pretty high, and then we load shed to avoid the high prices. But half our power is fixed. Pardon me, so I'm trying to avoid sneezing here.
No, do what you got to do, brother.
But yeah, so I think demand response is something that people talked about on panels a lot in the last few years, and there's not as many people actually doing it, but there's still a good portion of people doing it. And I think as the industry evolves, it's almost part of the responsible way of doing business. Right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, if we are taking from the grid, I mean, we're using a lot of resource. I mean, the least we can do is help raise the base load power generation for these things. Help subsidize that build out. I mean.
But that's exactly it. You said it perfectly.
Yeah, I mean,
right. You're raising the baseload generation because what the viewers may not be aware of is your utility company. I mean, they are going to produce excess energy when there's excess demand. Yeah, and usually there's 2 spikes in the day when people
come home from work
and come home from work. Now, if whatever you've got primary, secondary, or tertiary sources of power, they'll only flash up the secondary and tertiary when they need it. Those are typically a lot more expensive, right? And, the cost of spooling it up and spooling it down. But if you have the higher base load, as you said, and a crypto miner is consuming that, they're monetizing that. And then during the areas of peak demand, instead of ramping up, all the crypto miners do is ramp down. And then the utility just assigns that power to their retail customers. It actually allows the retail customers to have lower overall
costs. Yeah, it's just basic capitalism at work, efficient markets. I mean, it's a no brainer. I the way I explain it to the energy companies, like, hey, like, listen, like, we're like, think of it like a restaurant. Like, you have a restaurant, and like, we'll be there every day buying breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when you get busy at rush hour, we'll just sit outside and wait to come and order our food after everybody leaves.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to give us a discount for that. But we're happy to support your business.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, that's the way I kind of like, way it makes sense to people when I explain it. What about Paraguay? Are they doing any demand response stuff there, or is it still kind of
now?
not?
We're ramping up, and Paraguay, how we've given back to the community is we've electrified 18 schools, or
Oh,
I
wow.
should say we're in the process of electrifying 18 schools
Mhm.
in the region around Valenzuela, where a 100 megawatt site is. And so we're at 8 out of 18 have been electrified. And we met with the governor, Cordillera, which is the state, and we asked him, how can we help?
Yeah.
And he said, well, would you guys be able to help us electrify these schools? And we said, we'd be happy to.
Wow.
You're obviously in the energy business when you're in the Bitcoin business. So it was right up our alley to take that on, which obviously we did at our costs, and we did very happily to show our commitment to the community. In Sweden, we sponsor the hockey team. We actually do heat reuse in Quebec. We have a 30 megawatt Bitcoin mine in Lachute. It's an hour outside of Montreal. And the heat energy, there's a glycol pump system that actually takes the heat and heats up the adjacent factory. There's a massive, I think it's like a 174,000 square foot factory that makes swimming pools, and it gets bitter cold in the winter.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's about that mindfulness. So really, what we've got is, I think, a very, very sustainable and responsible approach to mining Bitcoin. I mean, look, we've been in the game since 2017, right? So, I've seen, look, if it's the bear market economics are not going to get you, taxation policy. I mean, and I think relationships are important, right?
For sure.
Paying attention. And
no doubt.
We got great relationships with Bitmain, got great relationships with NVIDIA. I was just here at the Bitmain's WDMS conference within a conference here at Bitcoin 2025
Yeah, I know.
at the Conrad.
Some of my guys are over there.
They just unveiled the S23.
Yeah.
The S23 Hydro. It's over 500 terahash per system and efficiency of 9.5 joules a terahash.
How many watts is that running? When you overclock it and stuff? I mean,
well, today was literally the grand reveal. I was actually had the honor of going on stage with Irene Gao, who's the president of Bitmain mining division, and we did the unveil with the kind of curtain reveal. And so all they stated was the efficiency and the hash rate. And I mean, they had a physical mock-up there. So, I think that right now, getting into the era of sub 10 joule per terahash mining, it's very impressive because, when you think the S21 plus hydros that we're deploying right now are 15 joules a terahash, that's a substantive, put it this way, going from 15 to 10 is the same as going from 90 joules a terahash to 60 joules a terahash. You got to think of it in ratios or percentages.
Yeah,
right?
wow. So this is actually a bigger leap than what's expected. How do you feel about the economics of mining? How do you think that affects? I mean, I'm absorbing this all right now. I didn't even know till you showed me the video. So we're deploying S19 hydros still and S21 hydros at some of my different.
The trick is this: it depends what you pay for them, right? If you got them for a good $1 per terahash price, and if you're buying them used, then you're going to get a good ROI.
Yeah,
that's the name of the game.
Yeah, that is the name of the game.
But the other piece is really understanding the gradient of hash price, but also what does that translate to in $1 per kilowatt hour revenue, which is really a function of the machine efficiency. And there's I presented this equation. I have tweeted it before. I call it the bridge equation.
Oh yeah, hold on. I got a question about the bridge equation. You got this engineering background. It's interesting to think about. So I'm going to tee you up with a question I had on this.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Your break-even hash price for an ASIC is equal to the efficiency times your $1 per kilowatt hour revenue times 24. And that's it. And it's a simple, but it's a profound relationship. I think that people often overlook. People think of hash price as a revenue-based metric, which it is. And I actually spoke on this on my keynote, but what is the bottom hash price that the networks can sustain? Well, we saw in the last halving, the floor is about $40 a petahash a day. So as long as you can mine profitably above $40 a petahash a day, you'll last through the bear market. And boom, we're at 60 now.
You know what's so funny is you're using all these terms and all these phrases and all this stuff. And it's like the way my brain works, like I just look at a deal and it's like, I'll know if this deal is going to be good or not. Right. Like you're like putting it into like you're evaluating the physics. And I'm going to ask you a question. I had a question. So, you've described Bitcoin mining as a physics equation and shared your bridge equation for translating hash price to revenue. As an electrical engineer, what's one technical insight from your Simon Fraser days that's given Hive an unfair advantage in scaling to 25 exahashes? And how does it feel to see that classroom knowledge powering a global network?
Wow, what a great question. That's a great tee up. Because my keynote presentation, which I should probably share some slides from, at the Bitmain WDMS, I really modeled the entire Bitcoin mining network as a complex electrical system. So in engineering school, we studied impedance. So in an electrical circuit, you have resistors, capacitors, and inductors. Now in high school, you learn really basic stuff, V equals IR. But that's a really simple linear system. When you get into engineering, what you realize is, first of all, capacitors and inductors have what we call complex impedance. There's a real and imaginary part. So it starts getting super complicated. The trick is you have to learn and realize that these are nonlinear systems. So when you apply a certain input, the circuit will respond in a certain way. When you apply a different input, the circuit won't have the same response. It can behave totally differently. And that's what we call the frequency response, right? So understanding nonlinear systems is, I think, pivotal and key to understanding how Bitcoin mining works and to understand
Bitcoin itself is a logarithmic system. I mean, if you look at price and like the network effects and Metcalfe's law and all these
exactly,
different things,
exactly, right? And so you have to be able to think in a nonlinear way. And when I think of logarithmic,
most people can't. Most people just can't comprehend.
Yeah.
And I find that often when I like try to show people like to really understand and appreciate Bitcoin as a network and the growth. It's like people's minds just can't comprehend it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like if you think about, okay, your iPad here has a whole bunch of resistors, capacitors, and inductors, but the individual response of those doesn't matter so much as how they all harmonize together and they're able to display this beautiful image on your screen, right? And so really the Bitcoin mining network, what it is doing today is about 900 exahash globally and 450 Bitcoin are produced. And what we don't know is what is the global scale of the network. Estimates are about 30 gigawatts, I believe somewhere to 28 to 30 gigawatts. And what is the average network efficiency? And the reason why this is really important, Maddie, is because what I said earlier, it's survival instincts. If you can mine profitably at the hash price of a bear market, you will survive until the next halving and you'll enjoy all the fruit from the bull run.
Seems like we're about due for that. It's been a little.
We're about due for that.
It's been a little while.
We're about due for that.
It seems like we're about to see that. That price jump a little bit. Enjoy those spreads.
Up to the moon. Boom. We got to get that picture later.
It's been
so, but after the 2020 halving, hash price fell to $75 a petahash a day, right? And now in 2024, it fell to $40 a petahash a day. So it was almost, half the amount. I think on some days it was 38 even. So basically the hash price floor fell. But keep in mind in 2020, the best miners out were really like S19, maybe the S19 J Pro. So you had machines that were like 30, 34 joules a terahash. But in 2025, or in 2024, we had the S21, which was 17 joules a terahash. So you could see that although hash price fell, right, by half, you had machines that were twice as efficient. So all kind of normalized. So what you need to do is actually measure the dollar per kilowatt hour revenue, and hash price is just an indicator of that, right? It's understanding these variables. It's multivariate, it's nonlinear, and it changes with time.
It is
to wrap your head around.
It really is, man. And it's it reminds me of I read this book a long time ago about like trading, and I think this guy they were talking about like there's a thing where they sex chick like little chicks while they're born, and I think it's like Nippon school of something. People train to do this, and it's like you look at these chicks when they're born to determine if it's a boy or a girl, and it's like it's not a pure science. There's like an art to it, and like you're basically you've seen so many that you can kind of like there's really not enough information, but there's some information, and all these variables and equations, and like you just kind of have a gestalt where if you train for a long time, you can get it right like 90-something% of the time, right? So this is kind of how I think about deployments and mining. Is like you kind of like you've written it out, and like you have this engineering mind, this electrical engineering mind, and you've kind of come up with the equations and mathed it. But like the way I look at it is like it's kind of like this feel. Like you look at a deal, does this deal make sense? What does this cost? What does this cost? How is the market going to move over the next 4 months? Right? Like am I overpaying here? What's going on there? Like, and it's just all these different factors, and you plug it in to determine. And the people that can do that well are going to survive, and the people that don't,
correct,
unfortunately, do not survive or go through insane troubles, like what we saw in the last huge upswing with all the public miners coming out. I'm looking at the time, I'm looking at like, hey, they're taking out loans at the fucking peak of the market. I'm like,
I know. Yeah,
what
we
the
did not
fuck
do
is
that.
going
We did not
on?
do that. We did not do
what are
that.
these guys doing? They have hundreds of millions of dollars. Who gave them this money?
I know.
Like,
by the way, it's short sellers because like you don't have like all these sophisticated funds that are like, oh yeah, I want a coupon at 1% interest and it's going to get a conversion premium at 30% if Bitcoin goes to like 150 grand. Like that's why I mean, they'll just buy the ETF if they want the upside. And so like what they're doing is they're going short the stock, right? And they're buying the convert. It's a classic shorting, very short long pair, right?
I just couldn't understand it.
There's too much paper. It actually created a short for the whole industry. That's why all the crypto miners are down.
Yeah.
It was like $5 billion of convert notes out there. The whole market cap of the whole industry is like 20 billion. You just had too much convert. They started shorting other companies like Hive, and we didn't even do it because it was just a proxy to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But by the way, our party started.
Oh my God.
We gotta get going. Venetian,
all right.
Casino.
It's been a pleasure. I told you we could do 4 hours, bro. Like, this is just fucking the intro. Hopefully you'll come to Naples and come to our podcast so you can record a Cypherpunk'd episode.
Great stuff, Maddie.
Serious.
Thank you.
Brother. Sounds good.
Cheers.